If there's nothing else, then I will turn it over to Bryce to introduce our program today.
Great. So with us today is Forrest Resener from StoveTeam International. Should be all set up to share your screen and whatever you've got for a presentation for us. So everybody, welcome Forrest.
All right. Thank you, Bryce. Thank you, everybody, for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here and get to share what StoveTeam International does. So we're based in Portland and Eugene. We have employees in both cities. And what we do actually happens in Central America. We provide cook stoves for families who are cooking over open fires, which around the world is a huge issue that unfortunately hardly anyone seems to know about at this point. So I'd like to start with a short video. It's a two-part video. The first half was made by Nova, and it is just about the issue of open fire cooking around the world. And then the second half is StoveTeam's founder, Nancy Hughes, talking, who lives in Eugene, talking about how she started StoveTeam about 10 years ago with the help of her Rotary Club in Eugene. Then I'll jump in after the video. Here we go.
They make this world black. My hands were like grease. You couldn't wash it away.
The pots were black. The air was black. It was impossible for breathing.
We have seen forest reserves in 3 years completely gone, not a single tree standing there.
Three billion people use biomass, so wood, dung, charcoal, agricultural waste, and they cook those on very rudimentary open fires.
The most dangerous activity a woman in the developing world can undertake is cooking for her family. And most of them have a baby on the front or a baby on the back. So that baby is inhaling so much smoke it's equivalent to 3 packs of cigarettes a day.
Cooking on an open fire contributes more black carbon to the atmosphere than all of the cars and the trucks in the world combined.
To make a ton of charcoal, it takes about 10 tons of trees. The forests are just vanishing.
The production and distribution of ultra-clean cook stoves that nearly completely eliminate smoke and reduce fuel consumption.
This new stove, look at this with your eyes. There is less smoke and it uses much less fuel.
The black is gone. I feel healthier, and my children, they are no longer sick.
What's the best way to design a stove to reduce smoke and increase performance? Our goal is to really bring researchers, designers, engineers, business people together. So it takes all of these people all under one umbrella to get the right stove into the hands of women. By manufacturing cook stoves, we're going to save thousands of lives, more than 100 million trees. We're going to create local viable jobs, and we're going to reduce indoor air pollution for millions of women. It's an incredible opportunity. We hope you join us.
Get ready to be moved. Our next speaker has been named a CNN hero and has been awarded the prestigious International Purpose Prize for improving the lives of nearly 500,000 women and children in Latin America. President of StoveTeam International, Nancy Hughes.
Well, in 2001, I lost my husband, a family doctor, to breast cancer. I had to figure out what to do with my life. What do you do? So I joined Rotary, and I volunteered for a medical team in Guatemala. And they asked me, what can you do? And I said, well, I don't know. I'm a mom, So what did they do? They put me in the kitchen. It was horrifying to see what went on there. I mean, we were a team of 120 physicians, nurses, and support personnel. I saw babies who they couldn't intubate them. They couldn't put the tiny tubes down their throats. They were so choked with creosote. Babies died. So I realized what we were doing was really important. So I volunteered again the next year and the next. And on the third year, I was working in the kitchen. I was the head of the kitchen by that time. And what can I say? Anyway, so this young woman named Irma, who was about 18 years old, beautiful, speaking Quechua, came into the kitchen and she said, can you delay dinner? Because I want to thank the team. You see, I fell in an open cooking fire at the age of 2. My hands have been burned shut for 16 years. Your team has opened my hands. I mean, what are you going to do? So we delayed dinner. And I said, okay, this is the stupidest thing I ever heard. People are cooking inside their homes with a campfire? The homes are about the size of my bathroom in the United States. So anyway, I came back and I went to the Rotary Club that I had just joined, and I said, don't you do stuff about things like this? So I hustled about 10 of my friends, you all can do that. And I said, okay, let's go to Guatemala and we're going to install stoves. We're going to be called the Stove Team to go along with the medical team. Fine. So these people came with me and I thought we were hot stuff. We put in 120 stoves and I thought, yeah, we've done it. Well, guess what? Then I went home and found out the need in Guatemala alone was for 6 million cook stoves. So I kind of stopped doing that. And then who knew? The leading designer of rocket elbow cook stoves lived 20 minutes from my home. I didn't know that. He knocked on the door and he said, you can't stop doing what you're doing. And I said, I'm over 60. I can do what I want.
All right, so Nancy was disheartened by what she'd seen once she learned the enormity of this issue, not just in Latin America, but around the world as well. But she still believed in the mission. And the man who came to speak to her, Larry Winiarski, just happens to live in Oregon, and he is the original inventor of the rocket elbow, which is the simple technology that's used in pretty much every improved cook stove that has been distributed around the world for the last 30 or 40 years. And together they collaborated to create a stove specifically for Central America and Latin America. They traveled down to El Salvador and met with a guy named Gustavo Peña, who has a workshop in El Salvador. And they designed a stove that could be built locally and distributed locally and was designed to be used by local people to make local foods and be affordable and portable enough to reach every region. So the next step was to start a factory to build, or a project or something, to build and distribute these stoves on a large scale. But Nancy wasn't interested in owning a factory in El Salvador at her age. She was past the age most people retire. So StoveTeam was started with a model of helping entrepreneurs to start their own projects in Latin America. And I think that's been a big part of StoveTeam's success to date. At this point, we have 4 projects going in 4 different countries. El Salvador with the Gustavo, the same man that we started working with over 10 years ago, Guatemala, Nicaragua, and Honduras. Now, these projects have been started with help from volunteers as well. We've led 33 volunteer trips with a total of 538 volunteers, many of them Rotarians. Oftentimes, Rotary clubs will contact us to set up a trip just for their Rotary club to come down and help build and distribute stoves. To date, this model of helping entrepreneurs to start their own projects has been pretty successful. We've been able to distribute 76,000 cook stoves to date. And because the average family size is so large in the regions that we tackle, This has directly changed the lives of over 500,000 people at this point. Now I want to back up and talk about open fire cooking. So around the world, almost half the world still cooks over open fires inside their homes. We recently experienced an air quality index of 500 or around 500, and in some areas above 500 in the Portland area, as I'm sure you guys remember, inside these homes. And that was outside. You know, we were able to come inside and seek refuge from that. The air quality inside these homes is oftentimes over 500. And that's pretty much all day long for these families because they have to cook for so long to cook for such a large family. In addition to half the world cooking this way, 4 million people every year die as a result directly from open fire cooking, mostly from lung disease. And that's almost entirely women and children who are disproportionately affected by this because they're inside the home all day long. Additionally, 4 million burns are reported every year, and that's the number that are reported. I would expect the actual number is much higher because many go unreported, and that is mostly children who fall into the fires, unfortunately. The fact that 4 million people die as a result of this is actually double the number of people who die from AIDS and malaria combined every year. This is a leading cause of death for kids under the age of 5 because they have tiny lungs that are much more susceptible to the danger of smoke. And to put it in perspective, it's equivalent to 400 cigarettes being burned inside the home every hour, or 3 packs of cigarettes per day for every person living inside that home. It affects not just the lungs, but the heart, which is so connected to the lungs, and also the eyes are very, very affected by this. Bending over a campfire, we've all experienced the effects on our eyes. And another important thing to think about is that this perpetuates energy poverty, and it perpetuates poverty in general for these families. There are a lot of different factors that are contributing to a family being stuck in an impoverished state, but the act of cooking over an open fire is one of the largest contributors, not just because of the health issues that families are experiencing, but because of the enormous time that it takes to cook this way. It's very inefficient, so it takes pretty much all day to cook for a large family. And then crucially, the act of collecting enough wood to keep these inefficient fires going all day long often takes 20 hours per week for many families. And unfortunately, this task falls to children in many cases. And it contributes to hernias, which we see often, and back and neck problems as well. The issue of open fire cooking also contributes directly to climate change and deforestation. As villages and towns grow, they're having to search farther and farther from their town to gather enough wood to keep their fires burning. And around the world, open fire cooking is a huge contributor to climate change, not just because so much CO2 is emitted by wood being burned in such an inefficient way for so many hours of the day, but also because of black carbon, which is a climate change accelerant that is produced when cooking using very inefficient means that are not filtered at all. Now, there is a relatively simple solution, and we're thrilled to be a part of that solution by providing improved cook stoves. So I want to talk a little bit about this one. Each of our partner projects that we've started in Latin America produce a range of different stoves for different needs, different regions, different households. This is the Hughes model, and it's a multi-pot stove, so families can cook multiple things, and it has a chimney, so there's no smoke inside the home. The stove is made of brick and mortar. It has pumice on the inside, which is a crushed rock that's very insulating, so it's cool to the touch on the outside. And of course, on the inside, it has fire bricks so that to keep the heat in and protect the normal bricks. And it has a welded metal comal on top, which is essentially a griddle, which is crucial for making tortillas and other things that people need to be able to cook in Latin America. Each family that receives a stove is asked to make a commitment in the form of building the base at the bottom here. We visit each home, we give them a pamphlet describing how to build the base. And once they've made that commitment, we come in and we build the stove for them. And that helps to ensure that they're not just committed to the project, but that they understand why it's going to be valuable to them. And it ensures that they're going to use the stove and they're going to stop using the open cooking fire. So with this stove, there's no smoke inside the home because of the chimney. Outside the home, there is 10% as much smoke overall being released because it's burning much hotter, much more efficiently. Each stove saves 15 tons of CO2 over the course of its life, which is equivalent to the average American's yearly entire carbon footprint. Each stove's cool to the touch, so there's no danger of burns for kids. And each stove uses half as much wood as an open fire to cook the same meals. And these stoves cost $75 a piece. We rely on donations to provide these stoves. So it's a simple fix, but the problem remains very complex. Ever since we started, we've been working to perfect our model of helping entrepreneurs to start their own stove projects. And this is something that's always evolving. You know, every entrepreneur, every person we work with in Latin America is different, and they all come with their own set of challenges in terms of personalities and preferences, and the regions, of course, as well, are all different. But the benefit is enormous. The benefit is that we gain their firsthand knowledge of their own regions, which we would never have as Americans otherwise. So working with these local partners has been such a crucial part of what we do. And we gain their excitement to help their own communities too. So we love to collect stories from the field. We have someone who lives and works full-time in Guatemala and oversees, kind of coordinates all of our operations across Central America. And he's very personable. He loves to go out and meet people. And he recently met this family, the Perez family, who are going to be the focus of a letter we're going to be sending out to our supporters next month that I'm really excited to share with everyone. We got stories from each person, what their experience has been like cooking over an open fire, and how the stove that we provided for them has changed their lives. And we love sharing these stories to connect our supporters with the work that they're doing. And the thing that we see in these households is love. And that is the thing that allows us to really connect with them and really understand why what we're doing is important. And it makes us really feel like they're our neighbors. So I want to talk for a second about Rotary. StoveTeam literally wouldn't exist without Rotary support. StoveTeam was started by a Rotary club in Eugene, and almost every project that we've started has been made possible by a grant from either a Rotary International or a Rotary district. And so we want to say thank you for being Rotarians, and we wouldn't exist without you. So a little bit of current events. StoveTeam, ever since coronavirus happened, we've been providing emergency food aid for any workers and their families in our partner factories and projects when they're unable to work due to coronavirus, to make sure that no one goes hungry. This is Alida Olivas. She recently purchased our partner factory in Nicaragua, and she's been super fired up to own her own business for the first time. She's been making tons of improvements to the factory, and we're thrilled to get to support her in that effort. When coronavirus passes, we will start up something we've been doing for the last few years, which is our educational outreach programs. We help our partner project, people from our partner projects, to go out into local schools and schools, especially in isolated areas, to teach kids and their families about the dangers of smoke and the benefits of stoves. And we're finding this is a great way to get into areas where families wouldn't necessarily even know that a stove is an option for them. Each school also receives an institutional size stove so that they can cook for the kids using a stove instead of an open fire, which many of these schools are actually using to cook the school meals. All right, and last, what's next for StoveTeam? So we've reached 500,000 people. We have a good model for getting stoves out there, and we're excited to grow. We want to reach at least 1 million people within the next 4 years, and we think that that's very doable. This issue is so enormous. We're still so at the beginning of it. There are not very many organizations that are working in Central America, unfortunately. So it's a difficult problem to tackle, and there's enormous need, but we're excited to have something very promising here to scale up. And eventually, we're hoping to scale into all of Latin America. Now, how you can help, we are looking for district support for the new Hughes stove that I showed earlier, the large stove. And so we're looking for clubs to sponsor us to their districts. But the most important thing, I think, is to raise awareness for this. So few people know about this. When a movement is still so small, but has such enormous need, I feel that maybe the most important thing any of us can do is just to tell others about this. So I'll send a follow-up email to Bryce. And if any of you feel compelled to forward that on to people, to share this with them, I think that's one of the most powerful things that you can do. We'd love to have you on a volunteer trip too. These are all on hold because of coronavirus, but in 2021, we expect to start running them again. And on our website, we do have a sign-up list to be on the waiting list, to be the first to hear when we announce when that date's going to be for 2021. On the website, we also have signups for our email newsletter that we send once a month with updates. And there's plenty of information on the website to help you spread the word about this. You can help build a stove, and you can even organize your own trip. Thank you very much. I'm happy to take any questions.
I have a question.
Sure.
I see that you share an employee with Aprovecho Resource Center in Mike Hatfield.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering if you could talk about your relationship with that organization.
Sure. Yeah, Aprovecho Research Center has been a huge part of StoveTeam, especially testing every stove that we create. They're our go-to, they're around the world, I would say, one of the preeminent stove testing organizations. They helped design the original rocket elbow cook stove that's now used around the world. And they just happen to be in Oregon too. We're geographically just in the right place for this. And the fact that we have Mike Hatfield as our program director is extremely crucial. He has 25 years of experience designing and testing and building stoves. Yeah, we love Aprovecho.
I'm glad to hear that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And Sam Benson, he's great too.
You know them, huh?
Yeah, I used to help them when I lived in Cottage Grove. So it's great. I'm really glad to see you're partnering.
Yeah, funny enough, I grew up in Cottage Grove, and I've known Dean Still, the director of Aprovecho, all my life.
Yeah, that's great. No wonder you're into this work. So congratulations.
Yep,
awesome.
That had a part in it for sure. Glad you know them.
Any other questions for Forrest?
I'm going to put the website in the chat here, just in case anyone would like to see the website. There we go. Maybe I have to put www for it to link.
That should not be necessary, but yeah. A couple of comments and questions for you.
Sure.
First of all, you're talking about it being the fact that so much of the carbon emissions going in the world are because of this. It sounds like the developing countries are producing the majority of what we're seeing in the carbon emissions for, especially the black carbon. So it almost sounds like what you're doing is taking them from where we were 300 years ago and bringing them into having a wood stove in every house to cook on, which we did, 100, 200 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so it almost sounds like we are slowly dragging them out of what we would consider almost the dark ages into current times. Because if you go back to colonial Williamsburg, you'll see that they did cooking over an open fire.
Sure. I would say that's absolutely accurate.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Forrest, for sharing about the stovetop project with us. We'll definitely keep that in mind. We do have an international committee. I'm not sure where they're at with their budget for this year, but that's something that we'll definitely address and consider. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.